Utter Worldie. In this episode called Defending Nous, I discuss the art of defending with Cardiff City centre-back McGuinness, who has just recently completed over 100 league appearances and represented the Republic of Ireland at under 19 and 21 international level. Leading on from a previous podcast where we discussed some of the skills and attributes of 5 very different centre-forwards, Salah, Mitrovic, Tony, Kane and Haaland, we discuss what to consider when defending against these strikers. We discuss the importance of fundamental motor skills and how these basic building blocks are required to be drawn upon and developed during the longer-term training processes. These fundamental elements are required when competing more complex sport-specific skills, as a defender's success in a game is dependent on multidimensional factors influenced by technical, tactical, psychological and physical variables. We also discuss playing out from defence, the importance of communication and organisation in defending, learning from mistakes, body positioning, maintaining focus and winning your individual and collective battles. Welcome, Mark. How's it going?
I'm all good, Rich. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Not too bad. Just looking at your record here, and we just spoke previously, so you're coming up to about 100 league appearances now, aren't you?
Yeah, something like that. So a lot of games in the last 3 and a bit years that I've been in professional football.
Perfect. So today I thought we would discuss defending. So I was a defender mainly, and yourself as a defender. And it came up in a previous podcast with a friend of mine who's a scout, and he used 5 different examples of centre forwards in the Premiership. A couple have moved on now, but we're going to talk about Salah, Mitrovic, Tony, Kane, and then Haaland.
Yep.
And just how you would go about and what you'd consider when you were to play against these types of players. So if we started with Salah, what would your thoughts be leading into the game?
But there's a lot of everyone's different. Look, there's a lot of thought that goes into analysing teams before games and things like that at any level. And obviously, we do our research in games and things like that. But when it comes to people like Salah, I think you just know what they're like. Obviously, individual talent. He could be in any team and he'd create something. He would get a goal, assist. You know, he's always linking in the play. But for someone like him, because of his raw talent and stuff, it's almost hard to sort of pinpoint what you would do against him. But look, I wouldn't say he's the most aggressive player. Trying to keep him quiet would probably mean, would be fullbacks being involved, sort of even going 2v1 against him. But keeping him as far away from the goal as possible, keeping him wide and sort of making sure that as a centre half, obviously, the further away they are from the goal, the easier it is. So look, it's obviously hard when you've got a world-class talent like Salah. But, you can obviously do little bits and bobs that can... Everyone's got a weakness, don't they? He's very, very left-footed. So whether or not you can, even with someone like him, again, it's hard to show him down the right side, but if you can, you would try and do that as much as you could.
Yeah, I think that's a fair answer. I think I'd do a similar thing. You may have to give a yard, which is difficult to show him down the line because that's the way you want him to go, right, with him being so quick. But you're taking him down the line, or you show him into other players, don't you? So
that's it.
For a bit of support.
100%.
And he's quick, isn't he? So you'd have to give yourself a yard or 2 or 3.
Or 4 or 5.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. So just on speed and so on, I think on a game, you on average do about 19 sprints a game every 4 to 5 minutes, with a bout of high intensity activity every 60 seconds. So that's just important, leading into that, the amount of sprints that you do and how important that is during a game. So just leading with going back to Salah, we would say then that you would perhaps show him on his right foot, bring him in towards other players, down the line if possible, and perhaps be a little bit aggressive might be the way to deal with him, yeah?
Yeah, look, I think as a centre-half, you've always got to trust yourself in 1v1 situations. Obviously, you've seen the best example of that was obviously Virgil van Dijk a few years ago. No one get past him. Whether or not they were quicker or stronger than him, it was just a mentality sort of thing. no one was getting past him. But look, when someone's quicker than you, there's obviously ways that you can help yourself. We joked about it, but even giving yourself a few extra yards on them is obviously going to help. If you know you're not going to be quicker than him, it's a no-brainer. And obviously, with their talent and the team around them, the amount of times you're going to be playing offside is really rare anyway. So giving yourself an extra few yards would definitely help you in those situations.
And do you think you learned how to deal with that? So let's say defending is a skill, which it is. These skills are developed over a period of time. They call them fundamental motor skills. So if you bring that into like controlling a ball, manipulating skills, like locomotor skills like running and jumping or balance and stability, those are the fundamental elements that you need growing up to develop, that you draw upon later on in life as you become a pro. So you need those basic elements, really. Would you say that that's how you developed in dealing with players like that those fundamentals, those building blocks are important for more complex, difficult skills in defending?
Absolutely. Look, you come against a lot of different types of players playing in all different leagues. I've obviously been playing. Grew up through Arsenal, obviously, training-wise, a lot of talent around there. And then as you go into professional football, I was obviously in League One, Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday. And then in the Championship, it's even better. And then within the Championship and within the professional game, you get opportunities to play against the top teams in cups. I played against Newcastle, Liverpool. You're playing against top players there. So over the years, and obviously, if you're lucky enough to play, is the main thing. Playing football and playing games is where you're going to learn. You're going to make mistakes on the way. Of course, I've made a few along the way, and I still will. I'm only 22, but I think if you're playing games and you get a gist of what different players are like, obviously one player is the same. So it's obviously the more game time and the more wise and older you get, the easier it becomes. But definitely sort of playing games, playing against these top players is obviously going to help you just consciously deal with things in the game that you think, I've come up against a quick striker before. This is what I need to do. I've come up against a big striker, physical, whatever, hold up play. There's different things you can do, but again, that just comes from experience. But that's the main thing, really.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant answer, because that's exactly my point. So it's the specialisation, really. So learning from your mistakes or learning from something that you could do better or thinking about it again. That's what the research will say, that's what's required to attain like elite level of skill, really. So it's putting those patterns together, isn't it? Yeah,
look, it's not straightforward. You can't just, as much as there are, as I mentioned before, everything is online, you analyse and you can do this and that. The only real test is when you're on the pitch, in front of however many fans, and you've got the pressures and whatever. That's the main environment where you're going to learn.
Absolutely. And then you mentioned making a mistake or something. It's a quote from Paolo Maldini. He said that if I have to make a tackle, then I've already made a mistake. That's, and what I noticed, Mark, as I got a bit older, is that I would perhaps make less tackles, if you know what I mean. Maybe it was a little bit slower, but I think you would get into the positions quicker, or you'd be more aware. So you've got that to come, mate. You've got that to come.
Let's hope so. No.
Okay. So we mentioned strength is another thing. So I think we might move on to Mitrovic next. Yeah. So he's obviously very strong. So if I kick off with that, I wouldn't be too concerned, respectfully, about him going in behind me. It would be him in front of me, right? So, and how to negotiate that. Would you think along the similar lines?
Yeah, definitely. I obviously played against Mitrovic the last couple of years, obviously, when they were in the Championship. And he was a funny one, because he, as good as he was, and the stats showed that, the team was very much centred around him. So he could be quiet for 90 minutes, but the constant sort of pressure and the way that Fulham played allowed him to maybe get 10 opportunities, and he only needed, and he was going to put one of them away. And that's what happened when we played against him. He was very much in front of you, very much linking up play, very much the focal point. And sometimes it would just fall to him and he'd get his goals. And that's obviously where he scored, I think it was ridiculous, on it 35 or more, wasn't it? Goals. But he was one that was obviously very strong, physical. Everything was in front of you. And it's always easy as defenders to keep things in front of you. But at the same time, he was very clever in that. He was coming in short link and play, popping out wide and find himself in the box, and that's where he got his goals.
Got you. So you mentioned strength there, and with strikers they found that they're obviously very strong, but they're more involved in more strength at high intensity, the most physical contact. And the recommendations are that defenders need to be just as strong, ideally, to deal with that. When you're dealing with Mitrovic, or when you dealt with him, what were you thinking, say, marking in the box, or or if he's in front of you holding up play, would you try and get involved with him physically, or what would you do?
I like the way you said dealt with him. So I definitely like to think I dealt with him. Look,
I'm going to call him up in a minute.
Oh, no, maybe don't do that. I hope he doesn't watch this. He really caused me nightmares. Really, that's what it was. If I can remember, in the box, obviously that's where the strikers come alive. The best strikers that come alive in the box. But as centre halves, that's sort of your area. So again, that's where we come alive. But he was very much got himself on the whip for the goals, goalposts and that, and then he just poached goals because anything can happen. Ball gets whipped in, keeper parries it, centre half miskicks it, or clearance and he's there. Second balls and things like that. So that was his game, and he was very good at it.
Yeah. And one of the tips coaches always used to say to me, I don't know if they still say it, was if he could see the number on your back, say when you're marking in the box, then you're in a bit of bother. So you've got to be a bit of side on, give yourself a yard in front. Would the things like that still go on, or has it changed a little bit, or how would you deal with that?
Yeah, definitely. Look, body position's massive for us centre-halves. Being able to see everything and just scan around when you're in the box. Because, look, things happen very quickly. And the higher up you go, the quicker they become. But that sort of just scanning, checking your shoulders and stuff. Obviously, strikers are clever now. They'll play offside, nip behind you and find spaces. And some respects, they can just stand still. We're always on the move and we're always sort of keeping on our toes, especially in the box. So sometimes we're at a disadvantage, but if your body position's correct, then you've got that pillar to then move and latch on to the strikers, because that was the main thing. Marking space is sort of useless in the box. I know you got your markers, your front, middle, back, but at the end of the day, the strikers are going to score. The space isn't going to score. So that was very much what I was brought up and coached.
Yeah, that's a very good point, mate. It's a very good point. There's just another example I'm just going to touch on. I remember when I was a teenager, I was marking Ian Wright, and he did something that I didn't figure out till later how he'd done it. And what he did is he was about to run in behind, so we were about 10 yards from the halfway line, and he's in front of me. And then I've looked across, so I looked to my right back, and then I've looked back, and he's about 10 yards behind me.
Yeah.
I thought, how is this guy so quick? He was so quick and sharp, Mark. I thought, how has he done it? But what he did, and it didn't really dawn upon me, I thought he's just sharp, he's just quick. He was waiting for me to look the other way, right?
Yeah.
And then as soon as I looked the other way, he's gone.
Yeah.
So that was clever. Was clever. But I didn't figure it out at the time.
Yeah, of course.
But it's clever, isn't it?
No, it is. Look, the strikers, we've got all the tricks in the book and whatever, and look, they're getting better and better, but obviously the centre halves are getting better and better. So we're getting quicker and stronger and matching these guys. But look, someone like that, that's a bit of nous, and again, that's probably experience from him.
Exactly. Just talking about a bit of nous, let's move on to our third of five, Ivan Toney. He's a tricky one, isn't he?
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of Ivan Toney. I think he's definitely got that physical capability, but he's very clinical. He's in a team like Brentford, who probably on paper aren't favourites going into most games, but and who only might get one or two opportunities, but he's there and he's clinical and he scores. You know, I don't know what his stats are penalty wise, you know, even something like that. But you know, he's a very key member of that Brentford side. But it's because of his all round package. You know, he's a very strong physical player, but he's very clinical. He works hard off the ball, on and off the ball. You can see what he does for the team, and he's a very key member for them.
Yeah, exactly. And I say tricky because I think if you were to mark him in most departments, so finishing, strength, speed, skill, first touch, aggression, he's probably quite high in most of them, isn't he?
Yeah, he's an all-round striker, and he's proven that obviously over the last couple of years, wherever he's been, where was it, Peterborough and Brentford.
Yeah, have you played against him yet, or not?
I haven't played against Tony. No, I haven't played against him. I missed him at Peterborough, and then obviously I wasn't in the Championship when they got promoted.
Okay, right. So we're moving on to another centre forward who's now moved on, playing in Germany, Harry Kane. What would your thoughts be leading up to that? What would your thoughts be, and how would you intend to battle against him?
He's similar to Tony, but another level up. He's very clinical, a very all-rounded player. But for him, again, it's just, you know, some of these strikers, if you're getting into them early doors, sometimes, you know, if you're disrupting their play, if they're someone like Harry Kane, he likes to get on the ball, likes to link play, a bit like Mitrovic as well. So if you're disrupting them early doors in terms of getting tight to them, little niggly fouls or something like that, just getting into them, disrupting their play so they're not linking play, filling them with confidence, getting on the ball, then I think that will benefit us as the centre halves going into, because then they're chasing it and, you know, whatever. And then obviously in the box, he's very clinical, finds the right spaces, so it's body positioning. Making sure you know exactly where he is and the space around you.
Yeah. And you mentioned body positioning. I don't know if you ever found this, but you and I are quite tall fellas. I always found if I kept on the move, it always helped me. So it can take us a little bit longer to get going. So I always found if I was just walking or just moving, the worst thing for me was to be standing still. So to get off, so I would always just be walking at the very least to go in the right direction. So with someone like Harry Kane, albeit he isn't the quickest, he's very good in other departments, you kind of just want to be on the move with these people, don't you? So you can close them down in the right direction and not change directions.
Yeah. Look, we can never switch off a centre-half, as you know. So if you're constantly on the move, you're sort of keeping yourself concentrated, keeping yourself alert, and then you're sort of ready to move in any direction and just latching on to players around you. But again, the most important thing is organising. You know, you're not out there on your own, and you can see most things. So that's why centre halves tend to be the more vocal ones. But also probably the one that it looks like they're not doing the most work, but actually what they're doing in terms of work is actually delegating to the midfielders, to the fullbacks, getting them round, and that's going to help you. So you've got someone like Kane, for example, who's going to drift off into spaces in front of you, and then it's just talking to the midfielder, saying, you know, left, right shoulder, coming in, out, or if you're going in, or you're staying. It's just sort of that communication, because, you know, yes, it's important to have that 1v1 ability, but as centre halves, you can sort of see everything. You can almost make your life a lot easier.
Definitely. It's a really good point, actually. Communication. It kind of it's not finding a way around it, but it's in a way it's making your job easier, isn't it? So everything's in front of you, talking to your right back, or say if we use the example of Harry Kane, a lot's been made of him dropping in the hole, going deeper. You can pass that on to a point when possible, can't you, to someone else to pick him up, because maybe you don't want to go in as deep all the time, Mark. Yeah,
it makes your job easier, but it makes everyone else's job easier. If you're talking to your fullbacks and you're talking to your guys in front of you, then it makes your life easier and whatever. But you know, the midfielders appreciate that, obviously in the right ways and things like that. But if you're talking to your midfielders, they'd appreciate that left, right shoulder, because you know, split seconds in the game can change the attack, the momentum. So you just preempt that. You're sort of talking to midfielders, left, right shoulder, takes 2 steps to the left, prevents the ball being played through. The next minute, you know, they're they're on a turn or whatever. But just the communication is vital, and obviously things happen very quickly in the game, so it's hard. But if you can sort of keep, and again, you talked about staying on the move and keeping yourself concentrated. That is one thing I think that helps me. If I'm talking through the game and talking throughout to my centre back partner, my full back, my midfielder, keeps me alert, keeps me in the game, keeps me focused. A bit like yourself when you're on the move constantly, or walking or whatever. Just keeps you focused in the game and what you need to do.
And have you found as you've got older, you talk more or you talk less?
I've always been quite vocal because of that reason. Helps me, but also I think sometimes you can feel when it gets a bit flat, and not everyone's different. You know? Some people just are happy to get on with their job and whatever. But I think I'll always continue, whether I'm 22 or 42. I'll continue to be that sort of vocal person in the squad. Whether or not people listen to me or not, I couldn't care.
Funny you should say that. I played with someone and he was in his 40s by the time he stopped playing. I think every year he talked even more. So I'm not sure how useful some of it was, but there you go, mate. But,
exactly.
But I think we could say that communication's key, isn't it?
Definitely.
Brilliant. Okay, so this last one, the trickiest of them all, perhaps, playing in a good team. Haaland. He's quick, isn't he? He's quick, he's big, he's strong, he can finish, he's a lefty. What would you do?
Yeah, look, he's performing well in a team that is obviously extremely talented and at the highest level. You know, we talk about Man City, we talk about Haaland, it's the highest level. But for him, similar to Mitrovic, I guess the team is evolved around him as well. You know, they've got so many different options. Man City technical side, probably keep the ball on the floor, popping it round, patient. You can pop into spaces, build up play, but also they've got that directness that they can play up to him. He can hold it, and again, he always seems to be in the right places at the right time to nick in a goal. So for me, I think it's just, again, it's not getting overly sort of fixated on him. I think you see a lot in the Premier League. Every team that plays him, every centre half, they sort of only concentrate on him. And in a team like Man City, that's probably the worst thing you can do, because there's 10 other players who are just as good as him. But if you're getting in a battle with him, he's a strong bloke, and you lose that once, he will score. You know, you can win 99% of it, but that 1% it can lead to a goal. So that's why you sort of got to be clever with him, pick and choose the right opportunities to sort of get tight to him, battle with him, but also then sometimes just allowing him, having that little first touch, maybe give him a bit of space, and then sort of going in. But again, it's what we talked about, the communication. I think having the players around you to sort of be able to help you out.
Definitely.
He's a great 1v1 player as well. He's strong, quick, physical, so he's got everything. So there's no, you like to think you win every single battle against him, but for strikers, they only need to win one to score. So it's obviously going to be difficult, but for me, I would definitely sort of pick and choose right moments. Don't get so fixated on, I've got to stop Haaland today, because, there's always going to be another fella that's going to be free and just as good as him, to be honest, in that Man City team.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good response there. So they will often say previously that good defenders can sense and smell danger. So I think that's kind of what you're alluding to with him. You've got to pick your moments, right? So when it's dangerous, or when you can get tight, or when it's a bit dangerous to do that. So when you will have your battles or your individual battles. But it's processing all of that information, isn't it? Because as a defender, it's quite complex with a lot of things going around you. So it's quite multidimensional in terms of technique, tactical, physical battles, and, the mental aspect of it. There's a lot of things going on in a short space of time, isn't there? Yeah,
look, I think it's very, for someone like for Haaland, being able to sort of delegate people around, just sort of making sure that you're not just focusing purely on him. And look, you can try all you want. Sometimes you gotta you got to realise what his strengths are, and somehow you've got to be able to just nullify them for. Look, you're talking 90 minutes of concentration really for a player like himself, which is hard, but at the same time, I think the more experience you get, the easier it is for you to be able to sort of sense that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about 5 different players. They're quite different players, and how you'd manage them, and all the factors associated with that, and how you would go and try and nullify their dangers. In terms of what you were doing a week as a pro, Mark, at Cardiff, in terms of defending, what do they do nowadays? Do you do a lot of one-on-ones, 2s and 2s, or there's a lot of pattern of players, a back 4 or a back 5?
Yeah, well, do you know what? Funny enough, I think now more than ever, you see, like, for example, the Cities, even the Arsenals, everything is centred around the centre halves. It starts on the keeper centre halves build-up play. So a lot of emphasis is actually on the ball with things like that. And the higher up you go, the more it's hard to sort of coach these top level guys. So obviously there are coaches out there who are great. I've had the privilege of working under some of them, but a lot of it is then sort of your own back. So sometimes I'll go up to my centre half partner and say, look, come here, we'll do a little 10 minutes of just defending, clearances, heading, something like that. But it's hard because, you have a player who's 29, he's played 500 games, and you're trying to tell him what to do. It is hard. Obviously, everyone can learn, but I think professional football, first team professional football, is a lot different to the younger academy days, for example, where you are learning your trade in the training. The games are the games or whatever, but you learn most of your stuff through the games, especially in the first team environment. But day to day, for me personally, I would do, even if it's 15 minutes a day, just a bit of defensive work, heading, just defending my box. But a lot of the time as well, it's on the ball stuff. That's sort of key in this day and age. So there has to be a mixture. Obviously, as defenders, our main job is to keep the ball out of the net. So we have to defend first and foremost. It's all well and good being the best ball player, but if you concede 10 goals or whatever, you're not doing your job right, are you? So it's their balance, really. But obviously, defending is first and foremost on the list.
Perfect. No, I agree. To be a defender first of all. Just one more thing on that, Mark. With there's a lot of emphasis now, isn't there, to bringing the ball out from the back and receiving from the keeper. What are your thoughts when you receive a ball? So let me just take you through. When you receive the ball, say, from the keeper, what are your thoughts? So for me, it used to be, can I hit my right back? Can I hit my centre midfielder? They're my first two. And then from then, it might be dropping it in or a longer ball. What's your thought processes when you receive the ball, when you're thinking of playing out from the back?
Yeah, look, during the week we'll go through patterns. We'll have an idea of sort of how they press, what we need to do. But as a centre half, when you're playing out, it's just trying to find that spare player. So as we mentioned, things happen very quickly, but you got to sort of picture. You'll know the shape and you'll know their pressing style. So you have a little idea of where the spare player will be. If that's a bounce out to the midfield. An example was we played Sunderland the other day, and I'm playing on the left side. I'm right-footed, but I play on the left side. So sometimes it's not as natural, but at the same time, there's things you can do on the left side you can't do on the right. So a lot of the time, I'm now opening up on my right, hitting that big switch, that diag. So it's a great little weapon to have on that left side. But in terms of playing out, we realised that they were obviously going to show me down the left side onto me, but what they were doing was leaving the opposite centre half. So all it was just a bounce out into the midfield, and we was out. But just finding that spare player, but just knowing that in advance, just scanning and saying, look, how do I get this to my centre half over there? And it was just as simple as just a little bounce out. So it's just being aware, trying to paint pictures in your head as you mentioned there, you got your fullback. Normally, he's sort of that easy ball you can pop into him. Most of the time, I'll probably stitch my fullback every time I give it to him and play it up for the back. But you've always got that longer ball up to the striker, sort of the safer option. But as we mentioned, these days everything is on the floor playing out from the back, isn't it? So there are different ways now to get out. As I mentioned, just trying to find that spare man, sucking players in. Man City are the best at it. Just standing on the ball most of the time, sucking players out, bounce out, and it's annoying to play against because you think you got them, and then one little bounce and they're out again, and they suck you out, and it's tiring. It's just wearing them down. But going back to your point, I think just making sure you know your next pass, having a little scan before you receive it, and then knowing that you've always got that striker up the top if worse comes to worse.
Perfect. Okay, Mark, that was brilliant. Thank you for your time. Really appreciated. And, just to cap on everything we've gone through, how to deal or how you would potentially deal with people like Salah, Mitrovic, Tony Kane and Haaland, and, working on the fundamentals to develop as an elite skilled, elite player, passing out from the back, working on, your strengths and weaknesses against your opponents. And you've been really insightful, Mark. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. It was great to talk about it and great to speak to yourself.
Top man. All right. Cheers, then. Mark.
Cheers, no worries.
Bye, mate.
Utter Worldie.